Hello, welcome to this podcast, Historical Development of Grammar. Historical development of grammar are main theoretical grammar schools and approaches. First question is, what is grammar? The term grammar is derived from the Greek word grammatike, where gram meant something written. The part tike derives from tikne, and means art. Hence, grammatike is the art of writing. Another point, in ancient Greece and ancient Rome, the terms grammatike and grammatica respectively denoted the whole apparatus of literary study. In the Middle Ages, grammar was the study of Latin. Another point here, the first grammar of English, Brief Grammar for English, written by William Ballocha, was published in 1585, the 16th century, late 16th century. The most influential grammar of English was published in 1762, meaning in the second half of the 18th century. It was R. Lowth's short introduction to English grammar. It started the age of prescriptive grammar. To a prescriptive grammarian, grammar is rules of correct usage. Its aim was to prescribe what is judged to be correct rather than to describe actual usage. A new modern understanding of grammar appeared only by the end of the 19th century, when the period of scientific descriptive grammar began. The actual definition of grammar at that time: if we wish to learn to speak and write, we will focus on the system of rules that underlie a given language. Now, practical grammar: if we wish to describe the structure of a language, we will focus on the units that make up the language and their relations. If we wish to understand how speakers of a given language produce and understand sentences, we will focus on the nature of the rules used. Theoretical grammar. The actual definition of grammar. Practical grammar gives grammatical rules of the use of the linguistic structures. Theoretical grammar gives an analysis of the structures in the light of general principles of linguistics and the existing schools and approaches. Okay, a big point here: main theoretical grammar schools and approaches. 1. English grammars, according to their general aims and objectives, can be divided into A. Traditional perspective and non-structural descriptive. B. Structural descriptive. C. Transformational generative. 8. Traditional grammar is the type of grammar as it was before the advent of structural linguistics. This is a traditional grammar. It's that type of grammar that was before the venue or the coming of structural or the apparition of structural linguistics. Two periods of traditional grammar could be distinguished. Number 1, prescriptive, pre-scientific. Number 2, descriptive, scientific. So, 4 devices used in English to indicate structural meaning. Number 1, word form. Number 2, function words. Number 3, word order. Number 4, intonation and accent patterns. Prosodic patterns. Traditional grammar by Noam Chomsky. Transformational grammar. A device for generating sentences in a language. It generates only the well-formed or grammatically correct sentences of a language, since it is meant to create the rules and principles which are the mind or brain of a native speaker. Noam Chomsky believed that grammar has recursive rules, allowing one to generate grammatically correct sentences over and over. Our brain has a mechanism which can create language by following the language principles and grammar. Transformational process of the syntactic structures, according to Chomsky's transformational grammar, can be best summarized by adding, deleting, moving, and substituting of words. These changes take place through specific rules, which are called transformational rules. Generally, any sentence structure contains a noun phrase, NP, and a verb phrase, VP. In the sentence, Vicky laughed, Vicky is an NP, and laughed is a VP. The sentence could change to the woman laughed. The woman is the NP and laughed is the VP. you can extend the sentence to Vicky, who lives near me, laughed. Vicky, who lives near me, is the NP, laughed is the VP. Expanding the sentence, Vicky, who lives near me, laughed loudly. The NP consists of Vicky, who lives near me, and the VP is laughed loudly. Deep and surface structure. Deep structures are the input to the semantic component which describes their meaning. Surface structure are the input to the phonological component which describes their sound. In short, deep structure determines meaning. Surface structure determines sound. The helical line connecting deep structure to surface structure represents the transformational cycle introduced in Chomsky theory, 1965. This model has three essential characteristics. First, the meaning or semantic interpretation of a sentence is determined from its deep structure. Second, the pronunciation or phonetic interpretation of a sentence is determined from its surface structure. And third, the role of transformations is seen as converting the semantically relevant level of linguistic description into the phonetically relevant level. Chomsky's view: the information that the child is presented with when other people address him or when he hears them talk to each other is limited in amount, fragmentary and imperfect. There seems to be no way the child could learn the language just by generalizing from the inadequate experiences from the utterances he hears. Furthermore, the child acquires the language at a very early age, before his general intellectual faculties are developed. Indeed, the ability to learn a language is only marginally dependent on intelligence and motivation. Stupid children and intelligent children, motivated and unmotivated children, all learn to speak their native tongue. If a child does not acquire his first language by puberty, it is difficult and perhaps impossible for him to learn one after that time. Formal teaching of the first language is unnecessary. The child may have to go to school to learn to read and write, but he does not have to go to school to learn how to talk. Okay, the child has a universal grammar, so to speak, programmed into his brain as part of his genetic inheritance. In the most ambitious versions of this theory, Chomsky speaks of the child as being born with the perfect knowledge of universal grammar, that is, with the fixed schematics that he uses in acquiring language. A child can learn any human language on the basis of very imperfect information. That being the case, he must have the forms that are common to all human languages as part of his innate mental equipment. One traditional argument against the existence of an innate language learning faculty is that human languages are so diverse. The differences between Chinese, Nautka, Hungarian, and English, for example, are so great as to destroy the possibility of any universal grammar, and hence languages could only be learned by a general intelligence, not by any innate language learning device. Chomsky has attempted to turn this argument on its head. In spite of surface differences, all human languages have very similar underlying structures. They all have phrase structure rules and transformational rules. They all contain sentences, and these sentences are composed of subject-noun phrases and predicate-verb phrases, etc. Grammatical theories. In the 1960s, Chomsky introduced two central ideas relevant to the construction and evaluation of grammatical theories. First, distinction between competence and performance. Linguistic performance. Chomsky noted the obvious fact that people, when speaking in the real world, often make linguistic errors, e.g. starting a sentence and then abandoning it midway through. He argued that these errors in linguistic performance were irrelevant to the study of linguistic competence. Linguistic competence, the language that allows people to construct and understand grammatical sentences. Grammatically correctness in terms of grammar. It is possible for a sentence to be both grammatical and meaningless. Colorless, green ideas sleep furiously. Colorless, green ideas sleep furiously. There is no sense to this sentence, but it's grammatically correct. Grammaticality. Meaningful but ungrammatical non-sentences. Man the bit sandwich the. Man the bit sandwich the. The meaning of which is fairly clear, but no native speaker would accept a well-formed. Would accept it as well-formed. The man. Okay. Minimalism. Minimalist program aims at the further development of ideas involving economy of derivation and economy of representation. Economy of derivation, a principle stating that movements, i.e., in other words, transformations only occur in order to match interpretable features with uninterpretable features. Economy of derivation, the plural inflection on regular English nouns, e.g. dogs. The word dogs can only be used to refer to several dogs, not a single dog, and so this inflection contributes to meaning, making it interpretable. English verbs are inflected according to the number of their subject, e.g. dogs bite versus a dog bites, but in most sentences this inflection just duplicates the information about number that the subject noun already has, and it is therefore uninterpretable. Economy of representation, the principle that grammatical structures must exist for a purpose, i.e. the structure of a sentence should be no larger or more complex than required to satisfy constraints on grammaticality. I language or E language. I language, internal language. E language, external language. The linguistic knowledge that is in the mind of the speaker, observable linguistic output, sentences, songs, text, etc. Every fluent individual in a language community has an I language. As such, every individual can produce a potentially infinite E language. E language is thus epiphenomenal. It is the result of I language. That's it. I've come to the end of the passage or the study. Hope you found something interesting in that. Just a reminder. See you next time.